going to move now from the tours and activity space to looking at how the aviation experience is changing for passengers. And so to discuss that today, I'm joined by Gustavo Pina, who is director of SITA Lab. So thank you for joining us, Gus.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So I want to start off with looking, on the whole, looking at the airport experience. If you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the traveler experience at the airport now and why?
Well, right now it's quite frustrating because of all the COVID protocols have increased all the manual steps necessary to get airside and with less staff because of people getting sick and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite frustrating at the moment for sure.
Yeah. So let's kind of walk through a little bit. We're going through the airport. We have a fairly low number probably at this point, but so starting just at the start of the airport journey with check-in and luggage, what advancements have we seen there and where is there sort of room for improvement, noting the fact that staffing has been hard, noting that it's been tough with people out sick and that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, really, I think the advancements, kind of got distracted from COVID and just trying to keep up with all the protocols and things like that. I mean, I think the big things that we've been looking at is looking for all the places where that lead to anxiety for the passenger and try to empower them to have a better experience at the airport. I think the previous speaker talked to some of those things. I think we're going to see more collaboration between the airport, airline, and government, and bring more digital collaboration, bringing the passenger into that conversation, so we can better flow and smooth out the congestion. When rather than a 2-hour window, when do I show up? Where do I show up? That we can manage that better in more real time, be more adaptive. I think you're going to see things like check-in happening more implicit sooner, as the digital relationship between airlines and passengers gets stronger. Things like bag drop are either going to be more self-service, automated, happen off airport, at vertiports, for example, being able to get airside or at rail stations. As we get advanced, digital trust and identity and biometrics, that we can smooth out the congestion at the security checkpoints. But also, I think we need to filter out those that are, that need handholding, that are freaked out, that are confused, mm-hmm. and shower them with more face-to-face service, because generally they're the ones that throw a monkey wrench in the whole operations. So I think a combination of those things is there's examples of them, but I think it's going to get more prevalent as time goes on.
Yeah. And so looking at that biometric component, how far are we from adopting those solutions at scale? And is it kind of more that consumer adoption might be hard, or is it that the tech is still not advanced enough? How are we sort of looking at the future with biometrics?
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. I mean, one is it's more than just digitalizing the identity and making a seamless flow with biometrics. Identity proves that I am who I am. And that's essentially what biometrics is doing. But you also have to automate the trust. Am I trusted to fly? Am I trusted to cross the border? And am I trusted now with COVID to have fun at my destination? Mm-hmm. To get the full effect, I mean, we need to look at the entire problem. With specifically to biometrics, I mean, it's certainly they're working in pockets. It's going to continue to grow in pockets. To scale that for a majority of passengers and across travel journeys to get that seamless experience, well, that's years away. One, mm-hmm. of trust. Everybody has to trust it. Passengers, airports, airlines, governments, that it's 100% safe, absolutely bulletproof, that privacy is, absolutely preserved. And then you have the challenge of, the enrollment, the biometric enrollment, the data, the thing that links your biometric to your identity that proves mm-hmm. who you are. Is that a giant Uber global database that everybody shares? Is that, some federation of private sector, public sector underpinned by bilateral agreements? Is it, decentralized and I've got now credentials on my phone similar to how I would use travel documents today. All those things have varying levels of risks and challenges, and then the regulatory changes that are necessary to get the full effect of this kind of automation. So it's still quite a tall mountain to climb, and we'll need to crawl, walk, run through this process to make sure we get it right, and there aren't any unintended consequences.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at the concept of a digital ID, then is that just kind of a portable PNR, or what is a digital ID going to? What information is that going to contain, or does it need to contain, rather?
Well, so digitalization enables automation, and automation, leads to convenience, right? So if you don't like standing in queues, digital ID is an important first step. But like I said, the ID proves that I am who I am. Mm-hmm. To fully automate those processes and make them seamless, then you have to solve the trust problem. Am I trusted to fly? Is the passenger in their bags trusted to fly across the border, right? And that's and if we're able to automate that digitally and do that way before the journey even starts, then a lot of those queues can go away. So, so it's what that we have to digitalize the things that enable the governments, the checkpoints, to basically take the trusted people out of the equation, and go on their way, and not inconvenience them, right? Because we inconvenience everybody because we don't trust anybody. So if we can digitalize the trust, I think for most people, they can get fast tracked and have a better experience.
Yeah. Expedite them and cut that 2.5 hours before a flight down, ideally. Yeah. So what do you make of new technology like the Clear acquired the virtual queuing tech Y-Line that is designed to, help you not wait in line to check your bag or through security? What do you make of those? And again, how are we going to see adoption of that take off, or are we?
Yeah, I think that's the right idea, right? Is that, rather than having a mob of people show up at the airport, at the same time, and telling everybody it's 2 hours before your flight, it's like, we can more intelligently manage that flow. I think the technology, the capability is right. I think there needs to be certainly a stronger collaboration digitally, like I said, between the airport airlines and the governments, because everybody has a different view of what's coming or what's happening. So I think, if that was better integrated, more intelligent, and there were ways to virtualize the flow with the passengers with that kind of intelligence, that's certainly going to be a big help.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then I want to talk about some of this, the technology SITA has been doing. I know you tested the Aruba Health Pass. I think it was May of last year, that allowed people to share their health status as it relates to COVID. Can you talk a bit about how that project's been going, and have you rolled it out anywhere else, or plans to?
Yeah. So, keep in mind that's a lab initiative. So, we've been trying to really think hard through that digitalized trust problem, and how to do that in a secure way, right? Because it's not an easy problem. I can tell you that, right? So we've been exploring, emerging technologies like self-sovereign identity, more decentralized type of technologies and trust. The idea is, if one day everybody has wallets full of verifiable credentials, or employment credentials, credit, credit bureau checks, that kind of thing, how can we reuse those credentials from all these industries to pre-clear trust before I've traveled, and reuse that trust without all of those touch points having to evaluate or see that information, right? So so in Aruba, with COVID, it was an opportunity to say how can we do that with test credentials, vaccination credentials, working with the already a source or holder of that data, which are the health information exchanges in the U.S., that enable passengers to get those kinds of credentials onto their wallet, that we can then verify it, through some pre-registration electronic travel information process before I've entered the country, and get a trusted status that then fast tracks me, across the journey. So the first phase of this early in the year, we really focused on across, at tourists doing their business around the island. How can we better manage that in more real time? But now we're really starting to look at the end-to-end journey of issuance of these credentials. But it's not easy because we had to work with the healthcare community to get the credentials.
Right.
The protocols needed to exchange this securely and safely so that we can then enable the government to verify those. It's machine readable data so they can automate the verification. And then all of the self-service and automation to create the same experience. So that's what we're looking at now. And then slowly reunify the COVID world to the traditional immigration world to say, can we reuse these credentials to prove that I'm not a criminal, I'm not a terrorist, I don't have an infectious disease before I've traveled, and leverage that trust along with digital identity and biometrics to fast track you, not just with air travel, but all modes of transportation and into the hotel, just to simplify that.
There's definitely more applications to use that kind of technology for beyond just our tracking our vaccine status and that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Great. So I want to turn back to the airport experience again for the traveler. And so much of what congestion and things that happen at the airport is because of the layout of the airport or trying to navigate an airport. What needs to change about an airport layout to kind of make the traveler experience better, and how does tech fit in with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of these airports were built decades ago when the world was different today, and the world's going to be radically different in 10 years, right? If you think of when passengers are arriving in autonomous vehicles or, landing airside on vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, it changes the dynamics clearly. But I mean, I think certainly as technology thins the airside border, that border can be pushed further into the airport. More of the retail and things can fall out. It can be more streamlined so that there's less anxiety about getting to my gate. Having fun there. So I think technology is going to thin the border, maybe thin the airside border. And that's going to change. And then with more intelligent flow management, like the previous speaker talked about, I think we can squeeze a lot of the anxiety out of the equation and also push a lot of the things further out, right? I can get airside on a vertiport, or I can get airside, right? So that make the problem more manageable so you don't have all of that congestion and people can really enjoy the airport experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I kind of want to get to wrap up on here a bit is just, the overall end-to-end experience. You mentioned some of these things, but just if you could give me, 5 years down the line, how are we going to see sort of the overall end-to-end experience change at the airport?
Well, it's going to be different. There's quite a lot of things that could radically change that equation. I mean, certainly all the air taxis, certainly changes the dynamics quite a bit. In terms of our regional. If I can get on the roof of the building and get airside and land at the hub. Like what happens to regional airports? Will regional airports band together and become hubs because now I can transport between them? I mean, there's a lot of things that could change the experience. I think from an end-to-end journey, I mean, that's something we've been focused on a lot. I mean, I guess, SITA's strength is we're kind of the glue to the industry and starting to extend that out to other modes of transportation, better collaboration, so that upstream problems can be anticipated downstream. Some more seamless transition of passengers and bags, maybe decoupling the bag from the passenger journey. So it just shows up at my cabin in the cruise ship or my hotel room, more Uber-like. I think, door-to-door kinds of services could be popping up in the next 5 years. And then more seamless identity, the things I talked about, automation. If we do it for one step of the journey, why can't I reuse that all the way into the Olympic Games, right? and my bags go to the hotel, independently from me, and then I can enjoy the games and go back to my hotel and just use my face everywhere, right? I think that's very possible and doable.
Well, we'll get there one day. Keep working at it. Great. But yes, thank you so much, Gus, for speaking with us today. And I'm going to hand it back over to Pete, who's going to close us out.